Hello and welcome to the Butler Collegian Newscast. I'm Catalina Gallegos. Butler's Diversity Center has recently undergone internal and external changes. The 3 new staff members in charge are working to create a more inclusive environment. Instead of being largely viewed as just a physical space with a fixed location, the center has set out to make its presence known around campus. Butler's Pan-Hellenic Association and Interfraternity Council are working towards implementing some new alcohol policies for Greek organizations. These new requirements include limiting alcohol beverages to below 15% ABV, as well as a bring your own alcohol policy. Fraternities will also be required to maintain a guest list for every event in order to improve safety and limit risk by keeping track of who is at the event. They are required to give the list to both Pan-Hell and IFC at least 72 hours before the event. These policies have already been approved by the IFC, and both the council and the fraternities are expected to work together in the coming weeks to implement the new policy. Have you ever wondered what Butler mascot Trip does all day? Collegian reporter Alexis Wallman went out to see what he does.
Butler students may think they have a busy schedule, but it's nothing compared to Trip's. Trip lives on campus with 2002 Butler University graduate Michael Kaltenmark, who is also the Director of External Relations. When Trip isn't out and about on campus trying to get as many belly rubs as possible, he's attending black tie dinners, visiting elementary schools, and posing in team photos. He attends all men's basketball games and runs the football team on the field. If you go to a Butler sporting event, you'll most likely see him there. But he doesn't only show up at athletic events. Trip goes to 50 to 75 surprise admittance visits all around the country each year. Michael tries to make Trip as visual as possible since he is a living embodiment of Butler. When Trip doesn't have a busy day, he is in Robertson Hall, where students are always welcome to play with him. For the Butler Collegian, I'm Alexis Wallman.
Relay for Life will take place on Friday, September 27th from 5:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. in the Riley Room. The annual event will have food, activities, music, and lanterns in support of cancer research. The Relay for Life organization plans this event at Butler every year in order to support those affected by cancer in and outside of the Indianapolis area. Their goal this year is to raise $25,000. Students can sign up online by going to Relay for Life's website or at the doors of the event. Now Chelsea Groves is in the studio with Butler Collegian News reporter Calvin Prenkert to discuss what it is like to be a faculty in residence.
Thanks, Catalina. I'm joined by news reporter Calvin Prenkert. He's here to talk about his latest story about the faculty in residence here at Butler. You were able to talk to some of them. How was that?
It was great. I was actually able to talk to faculty in residence from Ross, Fairview, Resco, and Irvington, and there's 9 on campus, and I was able to talk to 4 of them. Great experience, really got to learn a lot about them, their families, and how they make an impact on the community here at Butler.
And while talking to them, what was the one thing that really stuck with you?
Well, I think the one thing that really stuck out to me while talking to the faculty in residence here was really just the way that they make an impact on students' lives, but also how students make an impact on their lives. A lot of them have families, and a lot of the students reach out to those families, make long-lasting connections that don't just stay here but go on and after they've even graduated from Butler, and I think seeing that was really special and cool to see.
And you wrote the story, but what's your favorite part overall about writing this?
Well, I think just getting to see a little bit of different aspects of faculty on campus. I think, usually we see them in this teacher role, but for me, getting to talk to these people who live with us, eat with us in Atherton, and just sort of enjoy and engage in the lives that we do as well is really cool, humanizing a little bit.
Yeah, well, Calvin, thank you for joining us, and Catalina, back to you.
Now we're excited to introduce international student Kat Embry with her new segment, Kat's Corner. What's going on, Kat?
Thanks. In this new segment, we'll be talking about what's going on outside campus walls and what that means and affects for us as students. This week, we're talking about the youth climate strike. Millions from across the world went on strike this past Friday in the largest ever global demonstration to fight climate change and to end the era of fossil fuels. This is after Swedish teen and climate activist Greta Thunberg started the youth movement last year. Thunberg delivered a scathing speech to the world leaders later that day at the UN Climate Change Action Summit, saying, quote, "This is an emergency, our house is on fire," end quote. Students here at Butler were among those who marched, some downtown and others on campus, brandishing signs and leading chants all across the campus. Young people have had enough. Their aims are simple, it's just to be heard. Young people are frustrated by the seeming lack of action taken by those in charge. They're calling for us all to act. The demonstrations have not ended though, and this Friday they will continue across the world and right here on campus. Back to you.
Thanks, Kat. Students will continue to participate in the climate strike at the Star Fountain this Friday. Now Jake Bedell is here with a look at sports. What's going on, Jake?
Thanks, Catalina. Well, it was in fact a difficult week for Butler athletics. Several teams experienced a number of setbacks, but we're going to start things off with women's soccer. They were able to force a draw against Utah on the road in their final non-conference matchup last Thursday. The defensive play was strong in this game, but it wasn't short of its offensive opportunities. Butler came out strong in the first half with 7 shots, but ultimately the Utes would win the opportunities with 18 as opposed to Butler's 11 at the end of the game. Corner kicks were prevalent in this matchup with a total of 23 taken from the edge of the pitch. Despite this, neither team was able to score a goal, and ultimately the Bulldogs tied the Utes 0-0. They have a pair of road games to open up Big East play against Seton Hall and DePaul this coming week. For the men, they took on number 3 Georgetown last week in the first conference game of the season. Gabriel Georgie worked hard in the first half with 3 saves to send both teams to the half, locked in a 0-0 draw. But the Hoyas would break through in the second half in a big way. Only a minute and a half following the second half kickoff, Jacob Montes scored the first goal of the game with a shot just inside the right post. But the momentum would continue in the way of Georgetown as they tally 2 more goals behind Zach Rivera in the 76th minute and Montes again in the 82nd. The Bulldogs dropped their Big East opener 3-0, and they're taking on number 5 Indiana as we speak, and will host number 9 St. John's this coming Saturday. Volleyball hosted the Bulldog Brawl in Hinkle Fieldhouse this past weekend in a Friday matchup against Pacific. The 2 teams battled back and forth to force the match to 5 sets. Despite the Bulldogs coming off a 25-23 victory in the 4th set, Butler ultimately fell in the final round 15-10. They would rebound on Saturday, though, against Belmont by shutting out the Bruins 3-0. The Dogs tallied 8 total aces, and Brooke Gregory threw down 15 kills to lead the way to their first victory of the weekend. However, it had remained their only victory from the Invitational. Butler would later take on Loyola Marymount, but fell behind after losing the first 2 sets. The Bulldogs rebounded in set 3, snagging a 26-24 win, but would fall in the next round, losing 3 sets to 1. The Bulldogs finished the weekend 1-2 with great support coming from Meghan Ramsay, who had 113 of Butler's 128 total assists from the weekend. So great work from her. Lastly, football took to the road to take on Princeton on Saturday, but their defense was completely outmatched by the Tigers' offense. Princeton achieved over 500 yards of total offense, but limited the Bulldogs to less than 300. Headed into the half, the Tigers had a 42-0 lead. Butler would have 1 lone score in the 4th quarter by Nick Orlando to cap off a 14-play, 75-yard drive, but the Bulldogs fell 49-7. The Dogs have a bye week this week, so hopefully they'll be able to rectify some of the issues that they've experienced. For this episode's Collegian Team of the Week, we have Chelsea Groves to talk about the men's cross-country team and their upcoming event in Virginia. Chelsea, over to you.
Thank you, Jake. Our men's cross-country team will take part in their 2nd race of the season at the Panorama Farms Invitational at Virginia. After some rest from racing, this will be the squad's 1st race since the Butler Twilight back in late August, where they took the individual title. Clark Ott finished in the 1st place slot with James Sweeney, Jackson Martin, Eric Baugh, and Daniel Lawton rounding out the top 5 for the Bulldogs. For updates about this weekend's results, you can visit thebutlercollegian.com. Catalina, back to you.
That's all for this week's Butler Collegian Newscast. To stay up to date with all things news on Butler's campus, visit us at thebutlercollegian.com or on Twitter at Butler Collegian. I'm Catalina Gallegos.
And I'm Jake Bedell. Have a great week, Dogs.